Colorado is freaking beautiful and expensive. Let's talk about it. I'm Megan Friedel. I am your full-time real estate agent, part-time tour guide to all things Denver living. And today I really want to walk you through the finances that you need to know if you're looking to move to Denver or you're looking to buy for the first time in the Denver area and you want to know what the cost of living looks like. Let's break it down. And hey, I'm not just going to stop at what the prices are of the communities that you're looking at. We're going to deep dive into HOAs, water bills, gas prices. These are all huge things that influence you, so be sure to stick to the end. And then any follow-up questions you have, all my information is in the description below. That's what I'm here for.
Money, money, this money, that profit will make me wallet fat.
So the most influential piece of your cost of living is going to be the home that you live in. And so whether you are buying a home or renting a home, I've created some visual aids to help you conceptualize the price differences around the Denver metro area for each of them. So here I have the single family home. I use single family home for both of these just so that we could kind of compare a little more apples to apples here. And this is all of the sale price data that I have from the last year. So what did homes close out at when they were being purchased over the last year? And you can see that what we use in Colorado is kind of our true north is really a true west. So typically when you are going from the east to the west, you start to see a bit of a price value increase. So I used Watkins as kind of our eastern border just to kind of a point out east. And you can see that the sale prices there are kind of at the lowest end. And as you start heading west, you start to get some more elevated prices, of course, with Golden being one of our true high ticket prices. It's just, it's got a really cute downtown center. It's still a short shot from Denver, but it's also really close to the mountains. And for that, the sale prices there tend to be quite a bit elevated. Castle Pines is a little bit of a fluke geographically. If you come down here, it's another one of the highest sale pockets, and that's because Castle Pines is really a luxury community. Most of the sale prices there are above $800K. It's really kind of impossible to find much below that. And so even though you can find absolutely in Centennial and Littleton, you can find these pockets where things are multi-million-dollar homes, Castle Pines in general is pretty exclusive to that. So that's where these two highest property values come in. And then, we have the southern suburbs just tend to have a little bit more value. These are a little bit higher there, with Castle Rock and Centennial being right in between. And then, of course, Morrison, you've got a lot of diversity here. So I would say there's really kind of two splits of Morrison where things are always kind of over 900K, and then the split where they're under 900K. And so that, I think you get that landing right kind of in the middle. And so now let's bring in our median rent prices. I pulled this data from Zillow. The MLS, I think, is a truer, better source to pull data from, but it does not have as much information on rentals as it does sale prices. So I went with Zillow's data. One thing I'll note there is they are using the posted rents. They don't always have the information on what those rents actually final ended up at. So, if someone came in and negotiated a lower rent, that's not going to be reflected here. But I think, it's still pretty good for just kind of giving you some averages here. And you'll see it really follows a really similar trend to what our closeout for purchases did, with a couple small differences. If you look over here at Golden, it still sits on the higher end of the rental values, but it's not as much of an exaggeration as we saw over in the sale prices. So yes, you're going to be paying more to be living in Golden, but not quite the premium you are to buy. And then I will say Commerce City is also another big difference here, where it sits over here on the sale prices as being one of the most affordable options. Coming over here in rent, it's not the most affordable. And I think one thing to note here is these are some really new builds. And so you might be paying a little bit for the newness there as far as rentals go. But I will also say, I think there's a bit of a fluke to account for in two of these areas where there's just a lot more data data for rentals. So Commerce City, I think there's probably a lot of rental data there. And then it's same thing for Parker, where I would say if you're looking at Parker and you're looking at Highlands Ranch and you're looking to rent and you have the exact same size home, same bedroom count, same bathroom count, similar lot sizing, you're probably going to see actually Highlands Ranch be a decent amount more expensive than Parker. But I think that Parker has a bit more diversity and a bit more rental data. And so their medians tend to be a little bit elevated than Highlands Ranch as a whole. But, just the kind of a nuance you need to know by living here. Highlands Ranch, actually, the rents are going to be slightly higher.
So of course, if you're buying a home in Colorado, it's not just going to be your final sale price that determines your monthly payment. Lots of other things to consider, and the first one that is the biggest consideration is going to be your property tax bill. So it's always tough for me if someone is looking at a resale for a $600,000 home where maybe the property taxes are about $3,000 a year, and then they head up to an area like Reunion up in Commerce City, and they still look at $600K for their capped off purchase price, but they're not thinking about the fact that now that property tax bill just went up from $3,000 a year to $11,000, maybe $10,000 a year. And so when we're talking about tripling or quadrupling your property tax bill every month, that can be a big contender. And so it's something you really need to be thinking about. And so this concept is generally true for any of the new builds that you're looking at, whether it is that Reunion community up over in Commerce City, or you're looking at maybe in Parker, any of their new builds, Castle Rock, Macanta. These are all going to have a little bit higher property taxes that you've just got to be conscientious of when you're calculating out that monthly payment.
And the reason for this is a lot of that area right around the new builds are still being developed. So you're taking on some of that development cost for roads and structures. Sometimes this is going to be touted to you as, oh, it's a really short-term hike that's going to come down really quickly. But in my personal experience, I found these typically remain elevated for the entire time that most people own their home. So I would just go ahead and factor this into your numbers for good.
And a few other notable communities that do have those elevated property taxes. Of course, Stapleton up north, that whole community is just a little bit higher for property taxes. Same is true down south in Castle Rock. Over there in Founders Village specifically, they've got a little bit higher property taxes. And then, like Saddle Rock over in Aurora, there's kind of pockets all over where you just need to be a little bit more cognizant of where those property taxes are going to hit you. HOAs are also a very big moving target that, depending on what kind of community you're looking at, this can be a very big difference in your monthly payment. So of course, if you are looking at attached housing, you're pretty much always going to have an HOA. And those fees vary quite a bit. In the Denver proper area, they're going to be quite a bit higher than a lot of the surrounding areas. A lot of that is when you have these big high rises, those are going to have a lot higher HOAs. But let's talk a little bit about single family housing and just kind of make some generalizations going off of that. In Denver proper, you're not really going to have very many HOAs at all as far as single family housing goes. There's some pockets of Centennial and Thornton that don't have HOAs, but in general, there are quite a few mixed in there. And then you have even less HOA communities over in Aurora and Lakewood. About half of Westminster and half of Morrison and about half of Golden all have HOAs. So you're kind of 50-50 there. Down towards the more southern suburbs, most of those do have HOAs. There's a few pockets that don't, but all of Highlands Ranch and all of Castle Pines do have HOAs. The cost of all these and the rules of all these vary quite a bit. So you just kind of got a deep dive each time you pick an HOA community. And so when it comes to cost of living, your pre-approval, what you are approved for a mortgage for, is going to include that cost of the home, the cost of the HOA, and the cost of the property taxes. So all of those three things have to be considered when you are making sure you qualify for the home you're looking at. But qualification is often not the end thing that you need to be focusing on. Sometimes you qualify for much, much higher than you're comfortable spending. So that's when it comes time to sit down and really hone in your budget. Because these circumstances are so unique to you specifically, it's really important to have an in-depth conversation about this. As a real estate professional who's done this many times, I can walk you through this step by step and make sure we're staying in boundaries for you and your comfort level, because it's really important that you stay in line with what matters to you. So give me a call and we can have that conversation. You know, all of our information is in the description below.
Oh, and one more thing that you have to factor into your costs for your loan approval that can easily be forgotten is solar panels. So if a homeowner does not own the solar panels outright and you're buying the home, you typically have to take on that monthly cost to pay off the panels. And typically people are pretty okay with taking that cost on because it's saving them some on their utility bills, and a lot of people like the solar panels. But if you're already kind of riding the line for your pre-approval and then you forget to factor that number in, you could totally blow your monthly payment pre-approval budget.
So the cost of your home, the cost of your property taxes, and the cost of your HOA should be on the forefront of what you're thinking about for your search. There's some other things that are a little bit more subtle that are going to impact you on a monthly basis. The first one is water. So there are certain areas where water is a little more expensive or a little more cheap. Sterling Ranch is always the first one I think of. It is known to have quite a bit higher water bills there. You're going to see people complain about that quite a bit. So just know if that's the community you're looking at, factor in a little bit more for your water. This is true for the Roxborough community, really close by. Just another area where that water bill is going to hit you a little harder. Aurora is known to have some pretty affordable water, so that's one less thing you really need to think about there. And then Centennial, that serves the Centennial area, and Highlands Ranch, it's pretty affordable, and so is Parker. The toll road is another cost that you're just going to want to be thinking about, especially if you're using it for your daily commute. That could really add up. If you're thinking of using it even more than a few times a year, I highly recommend getting one of the stickers you put in your windshield. It lowers your costs a bit and then just makes it a little more convenient. But 470 is the road that runs all the way from Golden, Lakewood, Littleton, Highlands Ranch until you get to Lone Tree. Once you hit that intersection of 470 and I-25 on the east side, it becomes E470. And E470 is where it becomes paid toll road. That'll go up through Parker, Aurora, out to the airport, and up past to Brighton. So if your commute is anything from, like, say, Highlands Ranch over to DIA, you're definitely going to be using the E470 toll road quite a bit. But if you're, say on the west side of I-25 and you are going anywhere on the west side of I-25, it's not going to be probably a daily thing to factor in. You're probably going to be hopping on I-25 or 85, which is Santa Fe, and going that route. Gas prices are another one of those funny things that some people really care about, and you could really go 10 minutes away and save quite a bit on your gas prices if you're paying attention. You might be like me and you just drive to your closest gas station, fill up with some gas, and hope for the best. But I have lots of family and clients who all really take note of where you can get better gas prices. So I know, at least at the time of this recording, I-70 and Wadsworth corridor just tends to have a little bit better gas prices. If you're in Highlands Ranch and you just shoot 10 minutes north, you're going to really cut down on your gas prices. So there's also websites you can look at and find where the lowest gas prices are, or you could be like my husband and meticulously take note of the lowest gas prices everywhere you're driving around Colorado. Not all cost impacts are geographical. Something like lawn care is something that is either going to cost you your time and energy or your money. And so that is something, take a townhome versus a single family home that you have to factor in. But I will say, sometimes people will tell me that they want a townhome because they don't want to do the yard work, and that cost is worth it for them to just pay the HOA and have the HOA handle that. If it really is just about the lawn and not about all the other things that are valid that come with it, then I would just bring one thing into question. A lot of times these HOAs are $400+ a month, and the lawn care is definitely, if you're paying that 12 months out of the year, all year round, your lawn care is not going to be that costly. So if it's something as simple as that, I would say probably not worth it. If there's a lot more factors into why you'd rather have a townhome than a single family home, then it's probably the right decision. Similarly, maintaining land is super expensive. That's time, money, and inconvenience. Snowdrifts, for example, are really common out in rural areas where you've got some land. You're going to need the proper equipment and/or hired help to get you through. And then, of course, we touched on the cost of taxes on a new build, but that's not the whole story. Yes, you're going to experience some elevated costs with new build taxes, but if you're buying a much, much older home, that can have some really big costs associated with it too. Sewer line breaks, electrical updates, all of that stuff really adds up. So you have to kind of factor all of that thing in and pro and con what's worth it for you. And so whether you're looking into a new build or a resale home that is quite a bit older or something in between, you want to have a little bit budgeted set aside for unexpected expenses that do come up. You can get some home warranties, but I do find a lot of times these are basically insurance companies and they will try to wiggle their way out of any repairs. So have a little budget banked away so that anytime something comes up, you are not feeling that extreme pressure. And let's have a conversation about budgeting. It's honestly never really too soon to start having the budgeting and financing and goal setting conversations. It might take you a year or longer to figure out really exactly where you need to be in the perfect place. So whether you're moving in 9 days, 90 days, or 900 days, be sure and reach out because we can get you started on that. Follow-up questions and getting this kicked off is exactly what we're here for. All of our information is in the description below. And if you want more guidance on where you want to be in Colorado now that you know a little bit about the cost of it, be sure and subscribe so you can be the very first to get all of our neighborhood updates, tours, and more.
My brother and I have tons of videos where we break down what the downtowns of all these different areas look like, as well as what the neighborhoods look like. We've toured around Littleton, we gave you a tour of its downtown area in that video, and we show you our favorite restaurants like Terracotta, Palenque, and then we hit the neighborhoods from the most affordable places to places where you can get incredible luxury homes with mountain views. And we've done the same thing for Castle Rock, Highlands Ranch, Parker, Castle Pines, Morrison, Centennial, the Highlands, Sunnyside, and we are constantly building. So you can check out my graph of the prices at the beginning of this video and compare them to our video tours, and then you can just get the best idea of what the best area for you to be around Denver is.